Making the light that goes on the front of the locomotive is like building a little house. And the only reason that it looks like it has so many pieces is that we need to build up the base a little bit to have room for this light bulb. And I'm using a little Tim Holtz light bulb that's about 1 inch tall, and I don't know, it's probably at the base a little bit over 3/8 of an inch. So that's the kind of light bulb I'm using. So I've cut both some medium weight and lightweight chipboard. All the dimensions are in the cutting guide, of course. And I'm going to start by putting together the base. And there are 4 pieces of medium weight chipboard and 1 piece of lightweight chipboard that make up this base. And I'm going to start out by gluing together the medium weight chipboards in sets of 2. And then on one of these sets I'm going to attach a piece of white cardstock that was cut the same size as the base, which is 7/8 by 1 1/8. Now on both of these pieces I want to draw center lines going both directions. So now I've drawn my crosshairs on my 2 pieces of double thick medium weight chipboard. I'm just taking my light bulb on my circle template to see what size of a hole I need to cut, because I want to reset the light bulb down inside of this chipboard. And for me it's about a 3/8, maybe the next one bigger, but I'm going to start with that 3/8. And so I'm just going to, I'll use this white one. I'll draw that 3/8 inch template, circle, using the template. And then I'm just going to nibble away at that using my 1/4 inch hole punch. It doesn't have to be pretty and perfect. It just needs to be centered and so that the light bulb will fit down inside of there. So I'm going to do that on both of these pieces of double weight chipboard. So I finished nibbling away here, and I've erased the pencil lines on my white piece. I'm just going to stack these up, and before I glue them together I'm just going to test to make sure that the light bulb will fit down inside of there. And mine does. So now I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together with the white on top, and then take the lightweight base that's the same size and put that on the bottom. So I have a little sandwich of these 3 pieces. And then I'll take some glossy accents or diamond glaze and just glue the light bulb inside of here and set it aside. Now we want to work on our back and then front, and the front has 2 pieces. So on all of these pieces I'm going to mark a line that is 1/4 inch down from the top, and the pieces get oriented with the longer side is the vertical side. And then I'll mark a center point. These pieces are 1 1/4, so that center has 5/8 on either side. And then I'm just going to join the end of that 1/4 inch line. I'm making kind of a little peaked piece for the front and the backs. So I'll repeat that on the other 2 pieces. So the reason we have the front out of 2 pieces of lightweight chipboard is so that we can use a 1 inch hole punch and cut a hole in them. And obviously we can't do that on the medium weight chipboard. So I'm going to draw a line that is 5/16, that's a 16th greater than 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom. And then I'll continue my center line so that I have a line that goes from the point all the way down. And then I want my 1-inch circle, the bottom of it to be on that 5/16 inch line we drew. So I'm just lining up my template and drawing a circle. And then I'll use my 1-inch circle punch to punch that hole out, and then I'll trace it onto the other one and punch it out again. So this kind of lever punch is not really strong enough to go through the chipboard. At least maybe mine is a little bit dull. So I just kind of used it to cut a little channel there, and then I finished cutting it with my craft knife. And then I'm just going to glue these two together, and then I can do any cleanup that I need to do with my rounded file. And next I'm going to take a brown marker and go around this hole on both sides. And then color the sides of the hole as well. So sitting on this piece of black cardstock, I have a little piece of the frosted plastic that we used for the windows. This was cut 1 1/8 by 1 1/4. And I've prepped the inside here of this. This is the lightweight chipboard that has been glued up. And I prepped it with some 1/8 inch score tape. And then I'll remove that score tape backing, and then we will center, I'll put this on top of the black cardstock. We're going to center it side to side, but to see how far up from the bottom we should start, I'm going to bring my little light guy in and just put that on there temporarily. And then I can see that I can start that plastic even with the top of that and try to get it centered side to side there. Now if anything wants to come off the top edges here, just trim that off. But I'll remove the light here and give this a burnish. So before we put this together, I want to attach some decorative paper. So I've cut a piece here that is 5 inches by 1 3/4, and I want to center a 1-inch circle, and I'm using this die because it is, my punch doesn't have a deep enough reach. Now if your punch has a deep enough reach, go ahead and use that. And I'm going to do this circle so that it is the same distance up here from the bottom. And if you think that that will be hard to judge with your die, you could always cut this piece wider than 1 3/4 to begin with, and then put your circle in and then cut the distance off here. That probably would make life a little bit easier. But anyway, this is what I have for now. So I'll punch this circle centered in my 5-inch and up this same distance that's on my front piece, and I'll be back. So I've cut my circle out, and I have inked the edges, and now you can see I've got it here on my scoreboard. I have it centered here, and what I want to do is make a score 5/8 of an inch on either side of center, because our front is 1 1/4 inches wide. So I'll come in here at, here's my 5/8 on the right, here's my 5/8 on the left, and then our sides are 1 1/8 long, so I want my next score mark to be 1 1/8 from the last one I did. I think it's probably easier just to count 9/8 and then make the score mark. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on that side. And then the same over here. So there's our scoring. And then we only need to have these final pieces be about 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to trim them off, and it's easier for me to see that scoring on this reverse side. So I'll just trim off each side so it has 3/8 of an inch left. And then I've removed the backing from the stick-it here for the central portion, and I'm going to attach my paper there. Now the side with the frosted film on goes towards the inside. We'll just line up the circles and give that a burnish. And then what I want to do is cut the decorative paper even with the lines of the roof, and then at this point where the corner comes down, cut it straight across. So I'll do that and I'll show you what it looks like. I've just brought in a piece of black chipboard just so you can more easily see what's happening here. So this was cut even with the top angles on that front piece, and then I cut down even and straight across there. I've also kind of trained my sides here a little bit to want to come in. One more thing before we put this together, I want to cover both of the insides of the sides and the back with some white cardstock. So I'm going to do that. So now I've got these three pieces covered with white cardstock, and the reason we're doing that is just to help the light bulb show up a little bit better inside of there. So I'm going to start with my base and add some glue to one of the short sides, and then put one of the side pieces up against it, and then I'll put the other side piece up, and I'm moving fairly quickly here, I would say. And then I'm going to add the front piece by gluing on these three sides, and then I'll put some glue on the back and add the back, remembering to keep the white paper on the inside. Just checking to make sure it's all square, and I'll let that set up for a few minutes. And now that my little light has set up here, I can remove the backing from these side wings of stick-it and go ahead and wrap them around. And then finally I'll cut another piece of decorative paper to go on the back here, and you can either cut it using the shape that we did to begin with, or just put it on and kind of trace around here. I'll probably just cut it to 1.25 inches by 1 3/4 and then cut my little angle piece off the roof, and maybe knock back the sides just a little bit from 1.25 inches so it won't come right up to the edge. And then before I attach this, I'll just take a marker on these long edges here so that white paper won't show. And then I'll just go ahead and attach that to the back. And then to make the roof, we want to join the two pieces of roof together with a joining strip. We'll just butt the two edges up against each other. And then I'm going to take my marker and go around all the edges. And on the inside, I'm also going to go right down the center there. And I've got brown out here. I might change it up to black in a minute. It'll be easy to change that. And then first I want to cover the inside. And so I'll just take a piece of my brown paper here, and I'll put some score tape on the back of it and cover it flat like this. This will be on the side that we just put the joining strip on. So I'll go ahead and get that done. Then I'll give that a crease right there in that center. It doesn't have to be too much. And do some inking underneath here. So this roof is going to fit on the light like this. And you may be able to see that there's a tiny little triangular shaped wedge right here between the roofs. And when the paper comes on, we're just going to bring the paper across here to the edges. It may be possible to see that little gap there. Now, if that's something that would bother you, I'll show you a way to take care of that. So usually you've seen me cutting things with my plastic rulers. I'm just very careful with them, but for this technique you definitely have to have a metal ruler. And I've just got a scrap piece of chipboard here that I know this length is longer than the length that I have there. So I'm going to put this underneath my metal ruler. Now I think I have about 1/8 of an inch here, maybe just a little bit less. And then I have to hold this at an angle for myself. I'm just going to hold my craft knife. I've got it at a kind of a 45-degree angle here. And I'm just going to cut, carefully cut a little sliver there. And then I could put some ink on that, and then I can use that to fill in that gap on the roof. And then I'll probably sand it down. Now, if you're a person that you think, oh my gosh, that's just too much, don't do it. But I just, I know it'll be right there on the front, and that's not that difficult to do. So that's what I'm choosing to do. So I'll just run a bead of glue down that center seam, put this in place on the light, and put my piece in there. I'll give it some pressure and let that set up to dry for a few minutes. And then once that's dry, come in with a super sharp craft knife and then trim off the ends. And then with your black marker, you can come and carefully hit that. I'm also going to take this black marker right along the edges up here on the top as well. And then by doing that, now I have the roof kind of stationary in this sloped position, and I can go ahead and add my paper. I'm going to use this brown gear paper again, and I'll just attach it to one side and then bring it over to the other side and then trim it off even. I think I will take my scoreboard and make a score down the center of that, just so that I can have a nice crisp edge in the middle of that roof. So I've trimmed my decorative paper even with the top edges now, and I've done a little inking. I'm also going to do a little inking along the tops of the roof here. Maybe just a tad on the corners. And then we'll just center that roof and put a bead of glue along these top edges here. Put some pressure on that and allow that to set up and dry. And then the next thing I'm going to do to the light is put some trim around the bottom. I don't need to put any on the back because this is going to get attached right up to the edge of the front of the boiler. So just center it on the front here, however you like to do it, and then wrap it to each side. And I will put some glossy accents on the ends here to keep them in place. So now I have the light completed. The trim is around here, and now I'm just going to put it on the locomotive, centering it on this front platform. It'll probably come right to that front edge there. Just use some wet glue and hold it firmly in place until it sets up. So here's our locomotive with the light attached. I have to get kind of close to see the light bulb inside, but you can see it, so I think that adds something. So now we have all of the top elements added to the locomotive.